This is from Bomberman Land 3. This is from the Bomberman Jetters manga. This is from Bomberman Land Wii. This is from Bomber Girl. This is from Bomberman Act 0. And then there's this from Bomberman 94. All of this is official Bomberman material. You may be wondering how I got to this point. Well, I'll tell you. It all started back in 2014. Smash 4 had been announced the previous year, and people all over YouTube were making their predictions and or wishlist videos on which characters they were hoping would make it into the roster. One character in particular really stood out to me.
Here's a no-brainer to start off the list, Bomberman.
Just look at this guy. He looks like a Smash character through and through.
Bomberman already made a few appearances in some Wario games, so he's no stranger to Nintendo.
Bomberman would be a great fit for Smash Bros.
And number 2 on the list is Bomberman.
Number 1, Bomberman.
Here's a character who made his first debut in 1983. He's been around for 30 plus years. There's been many games in the Bomberman franchise. The whole series itself has sold over $10 million in sales. Bomberman himself has appeared in over 70 different games, long history with Nintendo.
This came as a bit of a surprise to me. I had grown up with a few Bomberman games, and while I loved them, I didn't expect Bomberman to be this popular of a character to warrant him being mentioned this much. Upon further contemplation, I wondered if there was anything you could call a Bomberman fandom, discussing things like how the series developed over time and that sort of thing. I had always assumed there must be one, but something didn't add up. Upon searching for Bomberman on, say, YouTube, there really wasn't much to find. Now, today there's a channel called Steamy Jimmy focusing on Bomberman, but this is still 2014 we're talking about here. That channel didn't exist in that form at that time. Sure, there were gameplay videos and perhaps even compilations of footage from all the games or the odd fun fact video, but nothing really discussing Bomberman in any depth. The closest thing to it would have to have been this video here, Bomberman Game History, made by a user named Humphy? Well, as excellent as that video was, it was only a part 1, and the guy never made a part 2. I wonder what happened to him. But things really came to a head when I came across this video. Now, Death Battle is a channel that pits fictional characters against each other to see who would win. Naturally, this involves a discussion of all of the characters' abilities. When they went through Bomberman's abilities for this Bomberman vs. Dig Dug video, it seemed really strange.
The Explosion Expander gives his bombs a power boost, and Bomb Kick and Power Glove let him kick and throw bombs at his own leisure.
They talk about some of Bomberman's abilities, but they don't mention the detonator or remote control, arguably one of Bomberman's strongest abilities. I mean, the power-up is right there in the footage they show, but they don't make any mention of it. They also don't mention line bombs, RC bombs, landmines, freeze bombs, salt bombs, any of the Kara bombs, walk-through walls, walk-through bombs, penetration bombs. Now, don't misunderstand me here. I'm not trying to point the finger at this channel directly. It was just the example that cemented the point for me that seemingly nobody knew anything about Bomberman despite his popularity. Not even channels dedicated to this sort of thing. I mean, how can it be that I had grown up with 3 of the games, that's what, 75 short of having played them all, and yet nobody I could easily find knew much more about the franchise than I did. I wasn't the expert here. I couldn't tell you how the few games I played fit together, like why Dynablaster had this professor character and Bomberman Tournament had this professor character. This line from Bomberman Hero indicates that Bomberman had faced this villain before, but I couldn't attest to that. Also, why was one of the games called Dynablaster instead of Bomberman? That didn't make sense. Now, there was a fan wiki, so I knew I wasn't alone, but still. This is Bomberman we're talking about. Shouldn't there be more? The more I thought about it, the more of a conundrum it became. How could it be that everybody knew Bomberman and yet nobody knew Bomberman? I suppose some of it made sense. Many reviews of Bomberman games at the time argued that Bomberman is really only about the battle mode and that the campaigns are just a waste of time. Yeah, I died a little inside from reading that. Many of those abilities I mentioned didn't appear in the battle mode, so I guess it's understandable not everybody would know about them. I also couldn't tell you at the time whether any of them were recurring series staples or just one-off abilities only appearing in one game. And what was the status of the franchise at the time? Well, the last official release had been Bomberman Live Battlefest on Xbox 360. There were plans for a Bomberman game on 3DS that looked promising, but then Hudson Soft, the company behind Bomberman, had been acquired by Konami and that game was cancelled. Since then, Bomberman had been relegated to mobile games. What a sad fate for a major franchise, I thought. Then again, was Bomberman a major franchise? There are so many games and so many people know about him, but he only ever gets mentioned in passing. Was Bomberman the biggest small franchise or the smallest big franchise? I couldn't let this stand. My goal was set. I was going to do it. I was going to try to play through all of the Bomberman games, go through whatever other things the franchise consists of, figure out what Bomberman was all about, and live to tell the tale. Thus began my Bomberman journey. But before we begin, real quick, super special thank you and shout out to the Bomberman Shrine Place, Bomberpedia, Steamy Jimmy, and the rest of the community that has contributed to the knowledge of Bomberman that we have. I couldn't make this video without all the information they have collected and made available.